Okay. So we've already seen a few. You might have noticed during the day, people mentioning this is coming in 2211. So there's more coming in 2211. And actually, because of the way we are only, instead of bothering you with 2 upgrades a year, we're kind of giving you 1 upgrade a year. And that means when you get your upgrade to 2211, you also get everything that's new in 2205. And there were a lot of things new in 2205, and just to make it even more fun, there are also a lot of things new in 2211. So this is the presentation where I'm gonna show you as much as I can in 15 minutes and then stop. But there might be things still on my slides, but you know how we did with upgrades. We'll send you some release notes. We'll try and do some videos as well. And obviously some of the things people have already talked about, so ERM, bundles or collections. There are other videos we can point you to. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually switch to the sandbox. Okay. Here we go. And if I can try and make that maybe a bit bigger and see how well that goes. Okay. Nope. Right. So what have we got coming? So as I said, we already told you a few of those things, and a few of those things were maybe to do with privacy. Why do I start with these slides? So I mentioned how you can make some fields mandatory and something optional, both on the patron form, in the staff interface, and on the OPAC. And you may have noticed, if you are using the self-registration, that there's actually only one system preference at the moment that controls both the modification form and the self-registration form. So that's splitting away in 2211, so you can have slightly different settings on which field people have to fill in when they join and which fields they're allowed to modify once they're a member. I mentioned that sort of the OPAC privacy also this morning, which gives you that My Privacy tab on the OPAC, and how at the minute it's only affecting checkouts. And in 2211, it's also going to affect holds. So I showed this morning very quickly that large red button. So in the new version, you're going to have 3 large red buttons, because that's so much better for your privacy. So that's like the new thing of whether you decide to use that option. We also talked this morning about logins and passwords and security. So Jonathan did mention that two-factor authentication is coming for the staff side in 2211. And there are also a lot of what I would call fun things about password expiration. So best practice with password security is you don't want to keep the same one too long, because if it's been compromised, then it's still the same one. So there's good practice around changing your password regularly. And you can now set in Koha an expiry date for passwords. And you can, so there's a few bugs that are related to that. And you can also, you have now a new button, which I'm going to show you, to trigger a patron reset password notice, which means if somebody has lost their password, you can also just send them the email, then they can just follow the link and resend their password. And the other new notice also related to passwords is, it's also a good security practice, is when their password has been changed, they can also receive a notice. So if it's not them who've changed their password, then there is a problem and they need to contact the library. So I'm just going to quickly show you what it looks like by looking up a user. So I'm just going to look up this user. And I'm just going to switch to the details tab. So here on the right, I do have that password expires never, so I don't have a date in there yet, but I can obviously edit that. And the other thing I mentioned was the button. So that's in that more menu, more and more things are coming under that more menu. And one of them is send password reset here. So I'm just going to click on that because there are a few things I want to show you. And another thing is the way the notices show now. So I have 2 notices in my account, and previously when you clicked on the notice, it just opens in a box, but in 2211 it opens in a really nice preview And if you're using HTML, it's a lot more obvious to see how well your HTML is looking. So I'm just going to close that one and show you the other one because it's possibly a bit more obvious. But this is a hyperlink where it says catalog, so you can now check that it's done it correctly for you. So it's a lot nicer, so that's another of the new things. One of the other things, so I'm moving away from passwords slightly, but because I'm showing you the Patreon account, I might as well just show you everything I think I wanted to show you in there. So in that more menu, another thing you may have noticed above my send password reset, and I'll have a send welcome email. So some of you may already be using the welcome email. So when a new person joins the library, Koha can automatically send an email to say, hey, welcome to the library. This is all the services you now have access to. And there's been a lot of work around which way the new library member is added for them to receive the email. So originally, I think it was only from the staff interface. But then obviously, if they join through self-registration, this is really important, like they should be receiving a welcome email. And now it also works if you do a Patreon import, they'll also be receiving. So there are like, I think, another also option. So everything is covered is the main thing to remember. But just in case they missed out on the welcome email, you do have the option to send it to them manually. And that's just using this button there. And it does mean that in your notices, in the tools, you also have that email. So previously it used to be called account details, but now it's just called welcome, and there's a template for it already, which you can amend. So I'm just going to switch back to my slides to check where I'm up to in telling you about all those things. I was on the passwords. Oh yes, on the Patreon details, there are a few more things. So here, let's go actually edit. So a few things that have appeared is you can now have a middle name. So thanks to Cheshire Libraries who sponsored that, there's a special field for a middle name. As you can see, my middle name is library. I think all our middle names is library. And the other new field is the pronouns field. So you can type in the pronouns the library member is using as well. I think that's a few people have asked about that before. So while I'm in here, I might as well just scroll down to the password options and show you what it looks like. All the way down here. So this is where I can set a password expiration date. And obviously I could have left it blank like I did before, or I can just say on this day, that password will expire. And I can obviously set it up to trigger the notice as well. Okay, item renew history is also in here. So sometimes you really want to check, you really need to check carefully what happened with that book that the person had or didn't have, or and you go in the circulation history, and it's really annoying because you know how many times it's been renewed, but you don't know when exactly all those renewals happen. So now you know, because in the number of renewal, there's that view button. So I've only got one here. I should have actually renewed it today. Let's do that now. I think I'm going a bit too, yeah. So I'm just going to renew my item just to show you a bit in a more obvious way, because obviously I have zoomed in. Okay. So I'm renewing my item. It's actually due back today, so I really need to renew it. I'm a very good library member. Okay, and it's now been renewed until the 20th. So when I go in my circulation history, obviously my item's been renewed twice, and I do have this really nice screen that tells me exactly what date and what time my items have been renewed, and also by whom or by which. So I know it was the Koha member of staff who renewed it via the staff interface. Moving on, I talked about notices already, so I showed you the display of notices. I talked about the account details. That's now the welcome email and all the options where that welcome email is coming from. In terms of reservations, I don't know how many of you have noticed that, but once an item reserved is on its way to the library or already waiting on the shelf, that means the library member can't actually change their mind and say, oh no, actually, I wanted to collect it from another library. But now, should you wish to give them that choice, they can actually do that. And that's controlled through a system preference. And you can decide. So for example, if you decide to be nice and say, okay, if it's in transit, and you change your mind, we'll send it to the other library. But if it's already on the shelf, sorry, I think I'm getting confused with the options. Yes, just scrap what I've just said. You've got options is the thing to remember here. So it means the library member can actually change that. They don't have to contact you and for you to make the change. They can do that from the OPAC if you use that system preference. There are new things coming to list, and possibly that's something some of you have been also eagerly waiting for about. When you create a list and you're the owner of the list, you have options to also who can actually edit it. And it was kind of missing an option of only being editable by library staff, so that option now exists. And you can also transfer ownership of a list, and you can do that also when the owner isn't there anymore. And I don't mean that in a really sad way, like they died. I mean, like they've moved on, like they've got another job somewhere, which is obviously great for them. And it's really annoying at the minute because they've created a list that you're using and you want to add to that list. But because they are the owner and they're not there, you can't actually do anything with that list. So now when that person leaves and you delete their superlibrarian account, for obviously data protection reasons, you can shift the ownership to a current member of your team who will be able to then add new things to that list. So it looks like this. I'm just going to go into my lists at the top. So those are my lists. I'm logged in as the Koha user, and I've got some public lists here. So the British history list is one of mine, but classics is a little bit like a, a two identity person at the minute. So the Aude member list is also one of mine, but under another identity. And I do have that button here that says transfer. So this the British history list is currently under Koha admin, and I can assign it actually directly to me as Aude. But this list is also, I can also edit it, and the reason I can do that is because of this setting here. So that's the one I said that previously was missing a staff only, but now actually I can set it as that, and any other member of staff can also edit that. I hope that makes sense. There are also a couple of new things in point of sale, like making the cash register something you have to specify, sending email receipts as an alternative to printing them, and improving the cash up summary refunds table. There are some really great things coming into reports. We were excited last year because of the variable, and you could insert your own time parameter in 2111 with that button. But now the new thing is automatic linking. So I don't know how often you use SQL reports, but at the moment you need, well, that's what I do. I have to go into the SQL reports library, look up what you have to type in to actually get a hyperlink, and then copy it and bring it back into my report, and obviously adapt it to my report. But now in 2211, as long as your report has either an item number or a biblio number or a card number or a borrower number, then these will automatically be hyperlinks in your table. And what you get is it gets highlighted in green because obviously the new color scheme, and it has that little arrow menu next to it. And when you click on it, you have those options. Do you want to view? Do you want to edit? And here, because in my screenshot, I'm actually clicking on the card number, I also have the checkout options. So if I was looking at the list of records, and I'm maybe in my report only had some basic information like the biblio number and the title, I could click straight on that number 13 on my screenshot, and it would take me into the view record, and I could just check the whole of that record really quickly. So that's going to make reports even nicer. Martin's already showed the new cataloging homepage. There's some also new notices and interlibrary loans. There's some new things also in the SIP config, which I'm not going to go into because I'm sure to get confused on how to explain it. So please ask somebody who knows more about SIP than me, but there are things coming. And if I'm talking about other fun things, So I didn't want to talk too much about bundles because last year Martin did a whole video about that. So if you do want more information, we can point you to that. Andrew mentioned curbside pickup, which I guess in the UK we're more likely to call a click and collect service. But in Koha now there are a few options. So there are things you have to set up in admin, and then it's in the circulation where you can specify slots for people to come and collect things, and you can say, okay, on this day it's from 10 to 12, and so on this day at this library it's from 10 to 12, and then it's 10-minute slot, and we can have up to so many people coming to collect things. So there's this new kind of whole new thing to look into. I mentioned here also the CMS feature, so it makes it easier to create pages on your OPAC. I can quickly show that to you. So it's in the tools, which look a bit different because we shifted a lot of the cataloging thing into the cataloging homepage. And you've got your news, you've got your HTML customization for all the different bits around your OPAC. And now instead of using one of those things, like usually you'd use the news and make them expire to kind of create a page, actually you can just create a page and it gives you the URL, so you can use that in your navigation when you do that, obviously under HTML customizations. And I'm going to stop there because obviously we're on a timer. The other thing I wanted to mention is I prepared this presentation, I think last Wednesday, and Martin keeps telling me, oh, new things have been added. I was like, no, it can't be. So there's actually more because I've missed it because I'm a week behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aude.